What's up, you guys? I'm Eric and welcome back to my channel. No, you grow up. Today's video is going to be the second to last in my Playmates series, and it's going to be one that you probably saw coming. I'm going to do my top 10 favorite Playmates figures of all time. This video was so much harder for me to make than my NECA one was. My NECA one probably took me about maybe 5 minutes to figure out my list. This one I probably spent 20 plus, and it took me just as long to weed out my honorable mentions for my top 15 as it did to come up with my top 10 too. That was actually 5 through 15 were probably harder than my top 5. So my top 5 I've kind of always had figured out. Like I've always been like, these are probably my favorite figures. So it was just really interesting to think about everything beyond that. And then, like I said, it was just much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, but with all that stuff out of the way, let's get rolling. Psych! So, since I recorded this intro, something kind of cool happened that I wanted to throw in this video. I've been talking with this dude Mark, and the other day he was like, hey, check out what I made for my channel. And I was like, damn dude, that's pretty cool. I wish I had skills and I could do stuff like that. And he was like, well, I mean, I can just throw your logo on there if you want to use it. Hell yeah. So, shout out to Mark and his channel, Bite-Sized Geek. You guys should go over there and check it out. He's into turtles and a ton of other stuff too. Just a really nice guy. Like I said, we've been chatting for a while and stuff like that. Yeah, so on top of this shout out, you will also forever be credited in all my videos. So for making this for me, or making it for you and sharing it with me anyway, you'll always have a credit in my videos going forward. Because again, I greatly appreciate it. It's just a very kind gesture. And again, it's just awesome just meeting people and having stuff like this happen. It's just a cool community, and again, I just wanted to be a bigger part of it, and that's what's happening, and that's exactly what I wanted to get out of this channel. So again, Mark, thank you very much. Go check out his channel, Bite-Sized Geek, and for real, now we'll get on with the top 10.
Alright you guys, so I went about this the same way I did my NECA top 10. I just started pulling all my favorite figures, and then once I realized that I had well over 10, I just counted, and I was at 15 again, just like I was for my NECA. So I had to weed out 5 figures, which was, like I said, probably the most difficult part. I think weeding out these 5 from my top 10 was almost harder than making my 5 through 10 was. So I'm a dummy and I forgot to actually take a picture of the honorable mentions, so I'm just going to end up showing you my top 10, and then I'll just talk about the figures that didn't make the cut. So here's what I ended up with, and I'm not gonna lie, it killed me that there wasn't either version of Usagi that ended up in here. Scumbug and Groundchuck are 2 awesome figures. I just don't have the emotional attachment that I do to them as I do the other figures that made it into my top 10. And if Groundchuck was bigger, he probably would have made the cut. It would have been really hard to eliminate my 10th figure. But like I said, I think he's one of the best sculpted figures. He's one of the best decoed figures, but he's just too puny, and it just really bums me out. Worm's another really cool figure. I love his color scheme. I love his sculpt. I just don't have any nostalgic attachment to this figure. I never played with him as a kid or even seen him as a kid, and every figure that ended up making the cut for my top 10, I just have some sort of nostalgic attachment to. Now that I have my honorable mentions weeded out, we can get on to my actual top 10. Alright, so you're going to notice this is a pretty good split of mainline and sublines, but the one thing you'll probably definitely notice is this is very Raph heavy. Raph is my favorite character. Like I said in other videos, I had pretty much every version of Raph that came out from 88 to 93. Everyone in my family just knew that that was a good go-to for me. He was my favorite character, so that's what I got a lot for birthdays and Christmases and stuff like that. But every figure in this top 10 was either one that I owned or one that Cliff and Pat had that I played with a lot at the babysitter. Every single figure I have a ton of memories with, and that was kind of the main criteria that ended up getting every one of these figures into the top 10. Alright, coming in at number 10 is Heavy Metal Raph. So I'm a huge metal fan, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I even like me some hair metal. Again, it's not the glam vibe that I'm into, it's just the guitar playing that I can appreciate, and that's pretty much just what I love about metal. This figure was one of my favorite when I was a kid. When I got this one, he was one of my take-along figures that I always took in the car wherever we went. And again, I mentioned this in my Playmates Memories video. I have no idea how the hell I had so much fun with this figure. I would take his guitar and his drumstick size with me, but again, just one of my favorite figures. He's just super fun. Definitely in that fourth year where they just blew up the budget and they just had so much money for deco and sculpting and stuff like that. This guy is an excellently decoed figure. He has so many different colors on him and everything just looks so good together. Again, I know the hair metal vibe isn't for anybody, but this is just one of my favorite figures. Coming in at number 9 is Samurai Leo, and this is one of 4 figures that are in my top 10 that I did not own as a kid, but I played with a lot at the babysitters because Pat and Cliff had it, and he was always one of my favorites. I really loved, I don't know what it is, I like it on him and Space Usagi, just that gold just really pops off these guys. It's not even vac metal, and it still just has like a nice shine to it. And the red and black and blue color scheme I just always loved. I don't know why, I just always liked those colors together. The sculpting on his shell is just, I mean, the more you look at it, the more you like it. It's just, the more I look at this figure, the more I appreciate him, and he's one that I'm just really happy that I have now as an adult. Coming in at number 8 is Metalhead. So this was another one that I didn't have, but Cliff and Pat did, and I loved this guy when I was a kid. He has a couple of my favorite gimmicks. I guess the vac metal is not really a gimmick, but this was my introduction to vac metal. This is the first figure I ever saw that had vac metal, and I just loved that shine. And then my second favorite part, I guess more my favorite part about him, the gimmick that I actually do like, is he has that thing that the Transformers figures had back in the day, where if you shined the light in the back of their head, it's translucent, it would make their eyes glow. I don't know what it is about that, but I just love it. It was one of my favorite parts about Transformers figures, and it's one of my favorite parts about this figure. And then again, he's just like Samurai Leo, like he just has so much good sculpting on his shell and stuff like that, and just the more you look at it, the more you realize how many details are actually there. Coming in at number 7 is Space Cadet Raph. So this is the second Raph to make an appearance on here, and again, he was one of my favorites. I think he was the third Raph figure that I had. I'm pretty sure I did get him in order. I had the main line, I had the wacky action, and then he was the third one that I got. And again, there's just something about the way this figure feels. He just feels so unique to me compared to the other figures in my hands, and I don't know what it is. Just the way that kind of heart-shaped cutout feels on his chest, and I feel like he's a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit more hollow. I don't want to say cheaper, but he just has a completely different feel than the other figures do to me. He became my tag-along figure with me for a while, and he's just one of my favorite ones from childhood. This was the one kind of surprise even to me. I always thought that Mutagen Man would be in my top 5 figures, but after making this list, he actually came up just shy at number 6 here. So I feel like this is a figure that's kind of, I mean, I think it's underrated. I understand what people don't like about it, but I just loved that gimmick that you could fill him up with water. Pat and Cliff always had water in him, and I just loved shaking him around and seeing all that stuff move inside of him. I've kind of been tempted to maybe fill him up with water and put a little bit of green food coloring in there, but I'm afraid that he just might start leaking, and then I just don't want to deal with all that crap, and then if it does stain him, then I'm just going to have a stained Mutagen Man. So haven't pulled the trigger on that, but maybe one day I'll give that a try. I know people don't like that he is just 4 POA, and again, I understand they had to do that to go with his gimmick. But I mean, I think he's a great sculpted character. Those insides are awesome. Just that shrunken head with the eyeballs popping out of it. I never even really appreciated that until I was an adult. I never realized really just how like kind of gruesome that really is, but it's just such good detail on the inside of there. And again, I think he's the most underrated figure possibly in the line. Alright, so Muckman is going to bring us into our top 5, and outside the dark horse that made the top 5, it pretty much is exactly the way I've always thought it was in my head after I really sat down and evaluated these to figure out what my top 10 is. But Muckman is not a figure that I had as a kid, and I actually hated him as a kid. Like I said, it was just, it annoyed me that manhole cover was stuck to his foot. I thought it was so stupid when I was a kid, and I don't know why it bothered me so much, but it did. And now as an adult, like, I just appreciate that. I think it's a cool touch, and everything on him is awesome. He is the best sculpted figure in the entire line, in my opinion. And I know that opinion's not unique to me. It's a pretty common theme with most people. But just the detailing on him is amazing. I wish he could have came in the 4th wave, and he definitely would have had a little bit more deco on him probably. But this figure is objectively the best figure in the entire line. And again, it's not one that I had as a kid, it's not one that I even liked as a kid, but I just cannot deny how good this figure is as an adult, and it was probably the best that they had in the entire line. Coming in at number 4 is Undercover Donnie, and this is the one that kind of shook up my top 5 a little bit. Like, I always knew this guy would probably be in my top 10, but as I was just staring at all those figures, just the more and more I look at this figure, the more I realize how much he means to me. I keep kind of repeating some of the same stories here, but one of my favorite memories ever is for my 4th birthday when I got 3 of this figure, and I just remember as a kid just like thinking it was unbelievable that there was a possibility that I ever could have gotten 3 of the same figures. Like, because again, I probably thought there was just infinite figures out there, so the odds of me getting 3 of the same one just seemed so shocking to me. But I ended up getting to return 2 of them, and I got to pick out 2 of my own figures, which was cool. But again, the one that I kept, he was one of my favorite figures. I played with this guy so much. I loved using him interchangeably with the regular Donnie, so he could go undercover when he needed to, and then he could just be his regular self when he didn't need to be. And I don't know what it is that I loved so much about him, but he was one of my favorite figures. And again, I'm even surprised he ranked as high as he did, but the more I looked at him, the more I just realized I have so many good memories with this figure. So we are coming into my top 3, and at 3 is Casey Jones. So this is the highest ranking figure that I did not own as a child, but this was the #1 figure that I always wanted when I was a kid. I was born in '87. I didn't really get into the line until about '90, so all the figures before that were kind of elusive to me. I had the 4 mainline turtles and Krang, and they were the only 5 figures from the first wave that I had, and I never had any of the figures from the second wave other than the Wacky Action Turtles. But Casey is my second favorite character in the entire Turtles franchise outside of Raphael, and you can probably tell by my profile picture and stuff like that. Like, I just love him. I don't know what it is, but he is what I consider to be my avatar to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe. I know that's like what Zack was supposed to be, but I never really related with Zack. I never really related with those kid characters because I always saw myself, like, I always wanted to be older. That's who I wanted to be. Casey is who I wanted to be. He got to hang out with the Turtles, and I always thought that was so cool, but he wasn't just a little annoying shit. He was a total badass. I really like how this version of Casey is its own unique thing. It's not the cartoon version, it's not the comic version, it's not the movie version. The Playmates figure is its own Casey, and it's my favorite version of Casey. I love his colors, I loved his sculpt, I love even the little blue in his hair and stuff like that. And again, he just easily makes my top 3 just based off my wanting for him as a kid, and just the fact that I have him now just makes me so happy. So coming in at number 2 is my mainline Raph. This, until Slash came out, was my all-time favorite figure that I had as a kid. I would always get whatever Raph variant was out, and I would always love him for a little bit, and he would always replace my regular Raphael as my take-along figure. But whenever I was playing with my Turtles, I would always go back to my 4 mainline Turtles when I was playing. I don't know what it is, but they just, for a first attempt, they absolutely killed it. These figures are amazing. They took all the best liberties they could have when they came up with this toy line. I appreciate the original Mirage Turtles. It was cool how they did all have the same color bandanas and stuff like that, and things were just a little bit more simple, but the extra touches that they gave to the toy line to just kind of differentiate all the Turtles was just, I mean, again, I think that's just something that helped the line blow up the way that it did. Like, they were very smart to go down that road to differentiate them, making them all different colors, giving them different bandanas, putting the letters on their belts. I feel like those were all just great ideas. I feel like this figure is what made Raph my favorite. He was my favorite of the original 4 turtles. I always liked his color the best. I liked the size for some reason, and I liked his sculpt the best because he was the only one that had 2 flat feet, so he was just always looked the most normal to me. He could be in his kind of side stance like this, or you could just have him straight on. So I feel like I always just was drawn to that as opposed to the other 3 turtles kind of having that like back stance leg going when they're up on the balls of their feet. But these were the figures that put the line on the map. They just nailed it. Varner Studios deserves all the credit in the world for coming up with these sculpts and doing what they did with them. Again, I think it's one of the best first attempts ever at any toy line. As much as the line went on and how crazy it got, these 4 turtles will always just be the anchor of the line and the most important figures ever made. So honestly, a very anticlimactic ending to this top 10. My number 1 figure is Slash, and if you've seen any video that I've made, I probably brought this up in 50% of the videos that I made. I absolutely loved this figure when I was a kid. I did not know about Slash until this figure came out. I never saw the episode that he was in, and man was I disappointed when I did see that episode for the first time. But as soon as I saw this figure, it's one of the only ones that I remember that I was like, I have to have that figure. That is a figure that I absolutely just have to have, and I can't remember if I picked it out, if I got lucky enough and got it for a birthday or Christmas. But when I got this figure, he was the second villain that I ever had. The only other one I ever had was Krang as a kid, and I just loved having that foil for my turtles, and I just always made him super strong. It took all 4 of the turtles to beat him down. And then I always let him have his own solo adventures too. He's the only other non-turtle, well, I mean, I guess he is a turtle technically, but outside of the main 4 turtles that I would ever just take and play with as my take-along figure. I love this figure so much. He just has such a good sculpt. His colors are just so good. His accessory colors are so good. The only bummer is he is just kind of small, but it doesn't bother me as much as it does with like Ground Chuck and stuff like that. Again, that head sculpt, I just love those teeth and how sinister he looks, and this figure just makes me smile every time I look at it. I just have so many memories. I played with this figure so much. I got it a little bit later on, so I just had a little bit more better of a memory, and I can just recall more stuff with it too. Again, he's one of the first figures that I wanted to get when I got back into the line. This is the shell and belt variation that I had as a kid, so that's the one I wanted to get again, but I think he's one of the few figures that I will go for some of the variants on later once I start to get a little bit more into the collection. Alright you guys, so that's going to wrap things up for this one. These top 10 videos might be my favorite videos to make. I have a lot of fun making these, and it's just a lot of fun to just kind of evaluate your collection in a way you haven't. Again, I could always tell you probably what my top 1, 2, or 3 figures are for a line, but you know, thinking about what your 7, 8, and 9th favorite figures are is just, I mean, not really something I've ever thought about. So it's just kind of neat to even see what I come up with and how I actually do my own ranking. Like, it's even amusing to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone that has subscribed to my channel. Thank you to anyone that has liked any of my videos, and again, now I'm probably going to start asking for that because I have that nice little layover in my video. And again, Mark, thank you very, very much for making that and allowing me to use it as well. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. Again, I just really can't thank you enough for that. So yeah, that's all I really got for you guys in this one. So take it easy, be safe, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.
I've been going back and forth with this dude Mark, and the other day he was just like, hey, check out what I made for my channel. Wait, it's going to be on my right side.